The unexpected recognition, the diplomatic station, hanging in the void between Earth and Zirion, buzzed with nervous energy. Captain Marcus Reed adjusted his dress uniform for the third time, watching through the viewport as the massive Zirion command ship approached their meeting point. 3 years of careful negotiations had led to this moment, and everyone knew the stakes couldn't be higher. Nervous, Captain? Asked Ambassador Chun, the lead human negotiator, as she reviewed her notes one final time. Marcus managed a slight smile. Just thinking about how many lives depend on what happens in that room today. He had seen enough war to know that peace was always worth fighting for, even if the battle was fought with words instead of weapons. The Zirion ship docked with a barely perceptible vibration through the station's hull. Marcus had studied their technology extensively during his military service, but seeing their engineering up close never failed to impress him. The Zirions might look different from humans, with their tall, graceful frames and skin that shifted color with their emotions, but their intelligence and skill were undeniable. A soft chime announced the arrival of the Zirion delegation. The airlocks hissed open, and Commander Thyra Valex stepped through, leading her team with the confidence of someone born to command. Her silver-blue skin held steady tones of formal blue, indicating her diplomatic mindset, while her violet eyes scanned the assembled humans with professional assessment. Marcus found himself studying her face, searching for something he couldn't quite name. There was something familiar about her bearing, a quality that reminded him of someone he had met long ago, though he was certain they had never been formally introduced. Ambassador Chun, Commander Valex said in accented but clear English, "Thank you for hosting these discussions. The Zirion High Council is hopeful that today will mark a new chapter in our relationship." "The feeling is mutual, Commander." Ambassador Chun replied with a diplomatic smile. "Please, allow me to introduce our team." Marcus stepped forward when his turn came. Captain Marcus Reed, military liaison and cultural advisor. Commander Valex's violet eyes lingered on his face for a moment longer than protocol required. "Captain Reed, your reputation precedes you." Before Marcus could ask what she meant, a small figure appeared at the edge of the Zirion delegation. A child, no more than 8 years old by human standards, with the characteristic Zirion features, but softer, more delicate. Her skin showed rapid color changes, cycling through curious yellows and excited greens that marked her as very young. "Nira," Commander Valex said gently, "you were supposed to wait with the ship's crew." The little girl, Nira, stepped further into the diplomatic chamber, her large violet eyes scanning the assembled humans with fascination. When her gaze fell on Marcus, she stopped completely. Her skin shifted to a deep glowing silver that Marcus had never seen on any Zirion before. "Mom," Nira said in a voice barely above a whisper, her eyes locked on Marcus's face. "That's him." The temperature in the room seemed to drop several degrees. Every human and Zirion present turned to stare at the child, then at Marcus. Commander Valex's skin shifted to alarmed orange tones. "Nira, what are you talking about?" the commander asked, moving protectively toward her daughter. But Nira stepped forward, completely fearless, approaching Marcus with the confidence of a child who had found exactly what she was looking for. "You're the flying man from my visions, the one who carries people to safety through the fire and smoke." Marcus felt his blood turn cold. He had never met this child before, was certain of it, yet something about her words sent a chill of recognition down his spine. "I'm sorry, little one, but I think you have me confused with someone else." Nira shook her head firmly, her skin now pulsing with gentle silver light. "No confusion. You have kind eyes that crinkle when you smile, and you smell like determination and sadness. In my visions, you carry a woman with orange hair through the falling fire rocks. She holds a tiny baby against her chest and cries because she knows she won't survive." The diplomatic chamber fell completely silent. Marcus felt the world tilt around him as memories he had tried to bury came flooding back. 5 years ago, the Carrion Valley disaster, the classified rescue mission that officially never happened. Ambassador Chin cleared her throat diplomatically. "Perhaps we should begin our formal discussions. The woman gave you something." Nira continued, ignoring the adults around her and focusing entirely on Marcus. A small crystal pendant. She made you promise to remember her people, to know that Zirions could be brave and kind even when facing death. Marcus's hand moved involuntarily to his chest, where beneath his uniform a small crystal pendant hung on a chain. A pendant he had never told anyone about, never reported in his mission debriefs. His throat felt tight as he looked down at this impossible child who somehow knew his deepest secret. "How could you possibly know that?" he whispered. Commander Valek stepped between them, her skin now showing deep protective red tones. "Nira, stop this immediately. You're disturbing our guests with your imagination." "It's not imagination, Mom," Nira said calmly. "I see the memories in my blood. The Crystal Lady was my birth mother. She knew she was dying from the poison air, but she was happy because her baby would live. The Flying Man promised to remember her sacrifice." The Zirian delegation exchanged startled glances. Several of them began speaking rapidly in their own language, their skin colors shifting to patterns Marcus couldn't interpret. Commander Valex's expression changed from embarrassment to something approaching awe. "Genetic memory," one of the older Zirian advisors breathed. "She's experiencing ancestral recall." Marcus felt like he was drowning in memories he had spent 5 years trying to forget. The volcanic eruption on the remote Zirian colony. The toxic atmosphere that had made rescue operations nearly impossible. Flying mission after mission into the poisoned air to evacuate civilians, knowing that every trip might be his last. And yes, there had been a woman with orange hair, a Zirian civilian who had pressed her infant daughter into his arms along with a small crystal pendant. "Promise me," she had whispered as the toxic gases began overwhelming her system. "Promise me you'll remember that we are not so different, your people and mine." He had made that promise, had carried it with him ever since. The mission had been classified, the rescue operation officially denied to prevent political complications. Marcus had never been able to tell anyone about the 137 Zirian lives he had saved that day, or about the woman who had died trusting a human stranger with her most precious possession. "The baby," Marcus said quietly, his voice barely audible. "What happened to the baby?" Commander Valex's skin had shifted to pale, shocked white. I adopted her after the Carrion Valley incident. Her birth parents were listed as casualties. There were no records of how she survived." Marcus looked down at Nira, this bright, brave little girl who carried the genetic memories of her mother's final moments. "Your birth mother was one of the bravest people I've ever met. She saved your life by trusting a stranger." Nira smiled, a radiant expression that transformed her young face. "She knew you were good. That's why she gave you the crystal. She said some promises are stronger than fear, and some people keep their word even when no one is watching." The diplomatic implications of this revelation were staggering, but Marcus found himself focused entirely on the child before him. This was why he had become a diplomat after his military service. This was why he had pushed for these peace negotiations despite resistance from both sides. "Commander Valex," he said formally, though his voice was thick with emotion, "I believe we have much more to discuss than trade agreements." Commander Valex nodded slowly, her skin cycling through complex patterns that Marcus was beginning to recognize as deep thought. "Captain Reed, it seems my daughter has given us an unexpected starting point for our negotiations." Ambassador Chun, clearly struggling to process what she had witnessed, gestured toward the conference table. "Perhaps we should all sit down and discuss this remarkable development." As they moved toward the formal negotiation area, Nira slipped her small hand into Marcus's much larger one. "Thank you for keeping your promise," she said quietly. "Birth Mother's memory says you never forgot her, not even when it made you sad." Marcus squeezed her hand gently, feeling a weight he had carried for 5 years, finally beginning to lift. "No, little star, I never forgot." The negotiations that followed would reshape the relationship between humans and Zirions. But in that moment, as he looked down at the child whose mother had trusted him with her most precious gift, Marcus knew that some bonds transcended politics, species, and even death itself. The genetic memories flowing through Nira's young mind held secrets that could change everything. Her mother's sacrifice had been the seed of something greater than anyone could have imagined. And now, 5 years later, that seed was finally ready to bloom into something beautiful and strong enough to unite two species who had never truly understood each other. As they took their seats around the negotiation table, Marcus realized that this meeting would be unlike any diplomatic session in galactic history. Because sometimes the most important truths came not from carefully prepared statements, but from the innocent words of a child, who could see the past with crystal clarity and the future with boundless hope. The hidden truth revealed the conference room had transformed from a formal diplomatic space into something resembling a courtroom, with Marcus feeling very much like he was on trial. Commander Valex sat across from him, her skin cycling through thoughtful purple patterns as she processed what her daughter had revealed. Nira remained close to Marcus's side, her small hand still holding his, her presence both comforting and deeply unsettling. Captain Reed, Ambassador Chin said carefully, I think we need to understand exactly what happened during this classified mission you apparently conducted in Zirian space. Marcus looked around the table at the faces watching him expectantly. The weight of 5 years of secrecy pressed down on his shoulders like a physical force. The mission was classified at the highest levels. Even discussing it could end my career. Your career might be the least of our concerns right now, said General Morrison via holographic communication from Earth Command. If you conducted unauthorized operations in alien territory, we need to know the full scope of what happened. Commander Valex's skin shifted to diplomatic blue tones. Captain, if you truly saved Zirian lives, then this classification serves no one. My people deserve to know about heroes who risked everything for strangers. Nira squeezed Marcus's hand. The memories show you were very scared, but you kept flying anyway. Birth Mother thought you were the bravest person she had ever seen. Marcus closed his eyes, feeling the familiar weight of the crystal pendant against his chest. When he opened them again, his decision was made. All right, but you need to understand that what I'm about to tell you was buried for good reasons. He stood and moved to the room's holographic display system. Computer access read personal files, authorization read 77 alpha. Authorization confirmed. The computer responded. Warning, classified material detected. Override classification. Command authorization Chin Diplomat Prime. Ambassador Chin looked surprised, but nodded when Marcus glanced at her for confirmation. Authorization confirmed, she said. The holographic display flickered to life, showing a star map with a remote system highlighted in red. The Carrion Valley colony. Marcus began, his voice steady despite the emotions churning inside him. 5 years ago, long-range sensors detected massive volcanic activity threatening the settlement. The colony had been established in violation of several territorial agreements, technically placing it in disputed space. Commander Valex leaned forward, her skin showing intense interest patterns. I remember the reports. We lost contact with the entire settlement. The official record stated that evacuation was impossible due to atmospheric conditions. The official record was wrong, Marcus said quietly. Evacuation was possible. It was just incredibly dangerous. The holographic display shifted to show atmospheric readings and topographical data. The volcanic eruption was releasing toxic gases that would prove fatal to both humans and Zirions within hours of exposure. Standard rescue protocols called for abandoning the colony and counting it as a total loss. But you didn't abandon them, Nira said softly, her young voice carrying certainty beyond her years. Marcus shook his head. I had access to an experimental atmospheric suit and a modified rescue shuttle. The suit could protect me for limited periods in the toxic environment, and the shuttle had enhanced filtration systems. I requested permission to attempt evacuation, and General Morrison prompted. Permission was denied. The political situation was too delicate. An official human rescue operation in disputed Zirian space could have triggered a war between our species. Commander Valex's skin flushed angry red. So, you were ordered to let my people die to preserve politics? I was ordered to maintain position and monitor the situation. Marcus corrected. What I chose to do after that was my own decision. The holographic display showed flight recordings from Marcus's shuttle. Shaky footage of a toxic orange-tinged atmosphere filled with volcanic ash and debris. Through the chaos, shapes moved on the ground, figures desperately waving for help. I made 18 separate trips into that poisoned atmosphere. Marcus continued, his voice growing rougher with emotion. Each trip, I could only carry 4 or 5 people safely. The toxic exposure was cumulative, both for my equipment and my body. The recordings showed Marcus in his environmental suit, helping terrified Xerian civilians into his shuttle. His movements were efficient, but gentle, taking extra care with the elderly and injured. In one clip, he could be seen giving his own emergency oxygen supply to a child who was struggling to breathe. 137 people. Nira whispered, "You saved 137 Xerian lives." The last trip was the hardest, Marcus said, his hand unconsciously moving to touch the pendant beneath his uniform. The toxic levels were reaching critical mass. My suit was failing, my shuttle systems were compromised. I should have stopped after the 16th trip. The final recording was harder to watch. Marcus's environmental suit showed multiple breach warnings, his breathing was labored, and the shuttle's cockpit was filled with warning lights. Through the toxic haze, a small family was visible, taking shelter in what remained of a collapsed building. "That's when you met Birth Mother," Nira said with absolute certainty that on the recording, Marcus approached the family. A woman with distinctive orange hair held an infant protectively against her chest while a man, clearly her partner, lay motionless nearby. The woman's skin showed the mottled gray patterns that indicated fatal toxic poisoning. She knew she was dying, Marcus said quietly. The toxic exposure had progressed too far. But the baby, Nira, was still healthy because her mother had protected her with her own body. The recording showed the woman pressing something into Marcus's hand while placing her infant daughter into his arms. Even through the environmental suit's audio system, her words were clear. "Promise me you'll remember that we are not so different, your people and mine." Commander Valix's skin had gone completely white. That woman, her name was Celia Kron. She was a terraforming engineer who volunteered for the colony project. One of our brightest minds. She was brilliant, Marcus agreed. Even while dying, she was calculating ways to improve my shuttle's filtration systems to keep her daughter safe during the flight out. Nira looked up at Marcus with eyes that seemed far too old for her young face. Birth Mother's memories say you cried inside your helmet when you couldn't save her. Marcus nodded, unable to speak for a moment. I tried everything I could think of, but the poisoning had progressed too far. All I could do was promise to get her daughter to safety and keep her memory alive. And you did, Commander Valek said softly. When rescue ships finally reached the colony 3 days later, they found no survivors except for one human infant who had been placed in an emergency shelter with a note requesting that she be cared for by Xerian families. I couldn't take her back to human space without triggering a political incident, Marcus explained. And I knew that growing up among her own people would be better for her development. I just made sure she was placed somewhere safe before I left. Ambassador Chun was studying the recordings with growing amazement. "Captain, do you realize what this means? You single-handedly prevented what could have been a massive tragedy. If those 137 colonists had died, it would have set back human-Xerian relations by decades." More than that, Commander Valex added, her skin showing complex patterns of gratitude and respect. Many of those colonists went on to become leaders in Xerian society. Scientists, engineers, diplomats. The cultural contributions of the people you saved have shaped our entire civilization's development over the past 5 years. Marcus looked around the table, seeing the faces of people trying to process the full implications of what he had revealed. I never intended for it to become a secret. I filed my reports, documented everything, But when I returned to human space, I was debriefed by intelligence officers who classified the entire mission above my clearance level. They made you a ghost, General Morrison said with obvious disgust, probably to avoid admitting that one pilot acting against orders accomplished what an entire fleet couldn't. Or wouldn't, Commander Valax added pointedly. Nira had been quietly processing everything she'd heard, her skin showing the slow, thoughtful patterns that Marcus was learning to recognize as deep concentration. Captain Marcus, she said finally, Birth Mother's memories show something else. Something important. What's that, little star? She wasn't the only one who gave you something that day. You gave her something too. Marcus frowned, trying to remember. I don't understand. Hope, Nira said simply. Before you came, Birth Mother's memories were full of despair. Her people were going to die forgotten in a place no one would ever find. But when she saw you risking your life for strangers, she knew that some humans were good people. That maybe someday our species could be friends. The room fell silent as the profound implications of this child's words settled over everyone present. Commander Valax's skin showed slowly shifting patterns that Marcus was beginning to recognize as deep emotional processing. Captain Reed, the commander said formally, on behalf of the Xerian High Council and the families of the 137 people you saved, I want to express our eternal gratitude. Your actions 5 years ago proved that courage and compassion transcend species boundaries. There's more, Nira added, her young voice carrying surprising authority. The memories show that Birth Mother wasn't just a terraforming engineer. She was also a genetic memory keeper, one of the few Xerions who could intentionally imprint experiences into the bloodline. Commander Valax's skin went pale with shock. That's impossible. Genetic memory keepers are incredibly rare, and the process of intentional imprinting usually requires years of preparation. She knew she was dying, Nira explained patiently, so she did something that had never been done before. She used her last moments of life to imprint not just her own memories, but her understanding of Captain Marcus's character. She wanted future generations to know that humans could be trusted. Marcus felt tears he had been holding back for 5 years, finally beginning to fall. She gave her life to bridge our species. And now, Ambassador Chen said softly, her daughter is doing the same thing. As if summoned by their words, alarms began sounding throughout the station. The holographic display switched automatically to incoming communications, showing urgent messages from both human and Xerian space. Emergency bulletin, the computer announced. Seismic activity detected on the joint mining colony of Helios Prime. Evacuation required within 6 hours. Both human and Xerian populations at risk. Commander Valax and Marcus looked at each other across the table, understanding passing between them without words. History was about to repeat itself, but this time they would face it together. Nira, Marcus said gently, how would you feel about helping me save some more people? The little girl's skin blazed with excited silver light. Birth Mother's memories say that heroes are even braver when they work together. As the emergency protocols activated around them, Marcus realized that Celiacron's final gift was about to transform a diplomatic meeting into something far more important. The first true alliance between species built on trust, sacrifice, and the unshakable belief that some promises are worth keeping no matter the cost. Bonds beyond species. The Joint Command Center aboard the diplomatic station had been transformed into a crisis management hub within minutes. Holographic displays showed real-time data from Helios Prime, the mining colony that housed both human and Xerian families. The seismic readings were getting worse by the hour, and the evacuation window was rapidly closing. Marcus stood beside Commander Valax at the central planning table, both of them studying the tactical situation with the focused intensity of experienced military officers. The political tensions that had dominated their earlier meetings seemed trivial now, swept aside by the immediate need to save lives. The geological surveys show massive instability in the planet's core, Commander Valax reported, her skin displaying the steady blue patterns of professional concentration. We have maybe 5 hours before the entire mining complex becomes uninhabitable. How many people are we talking about? Marcus asked, already calculating flight patterns and evacuation schedules in his head. 2,347 total. Ambassador Chin replied from her position at the communications array, roughly 60% human, 40% Xerian. Most of them are families, including a significant number of children. Nira had positioned herself at a smaller console, her young fingers moving across the holographic interface with surprising skill. The genetic memories are showing me something important, she announced. Birth Mother worked on the Helios Prime project in its early phases. She helped design the emergency protocols. Commander Valex looked surprised. Celia worked on Helios Prime? That wasn't in her official records. She was consulted as a terraforming specialist, Nira explained, her skin showing the concentrated silver patterns that appeared whenever she accessed her inherited memories. The emergency shelters she designed can protect people from seismic events, but only for limited time periods. Marcus leaned over the tactical display, studying the colony's layout. What kind of time periods are we talking about? 12 hours maximum, Nira replied. But that's only if the shelters are properly sealed and the atmospheric processors remain functional. General Morrison's holographic image flickered into view. Captain Reed, we're scrambling every available rescue ship, but our nearest fleet is 8 hours away. Even pushing maximum speed, we won't reach Helios Prime until after the seismic window closes. Commander Valex's skin shifted to frustrated orange patterns. Our rapid response fleet is in the same situation. The colony is positioned at the worst possible location for emergency response from either of our territories. Marcus felt a familiar sensation, the same mixture of determination and controlled fear that had driven him during the Carrion Valley rescue. What about individual fast response vessels? Ships small enough to navigate the unstable atmospheric conditions, but fast enough to reach the colony within the evacuation window? Ambassador Chin consulted her displays. We have 3 human scout ships capable of that kind of performance, but their cargo capacity is extremely limited. Maybe 30 people per ship maximum, and I have access to 4 Xerian interceptors with similar capabilities, Commander Valex added. But even combined, we're looking at maybe 200 people evacuated before the deadline. That leaves over 2,000 people trapped, Marcus said grimly. Nira suddenly looked up from her console, her young face bright with excitement. But what if we don't evacuate them? What if we make them safe where they are? The adults in the room turned to stare at the 8-year-old who had just proposed an alternative to their carefully calculated rescue plans. Commander Valex's skin showed maternal concern patterns. Nira, sweetheart, the seismic activity will make the colony uninhabitable. We can't protect people from planetary-scale geological events. But Birth Mother's memories show a different option, Nira insisted. The emergency shelters weren't designed just for temporary protection. They were designed to be expandable to create underground safe zones that could sustain large populations for extended periods. Marcus felt his pulse quicken. You're talking about converting the existing shelters into a permanent underground settlement? Not permanent, Nira corrected, but long-term enough for proper evacuation fleets to arrive safely. Birth Mother calculated that with the right modifications, the shelter system could protect the entire colony population for up to 72 hours. Commander Valex was already pulling up the original engineering specifications. The power requirements alone would be enormous, and someone would need to remain on the surface to operate the conversion systems while the seismic activity was intensifying. Someone would need to fly repeated supply runs through increasingly dangerous atmospheric conditions, Marcus added, understanding immediately what Nira was proposing, bringing in the equipment and materials needed for the shelter modifications. It's essentially impossible, General Morrison said bluntly. The risk factors are off the charts. Nira looked around the room at all the adults who were explaining why her idea wouldn't work. Her skin showed the stubborn silver patterns that Marcus was learning meant she had made up her mind about something. Birth mother's memories say that impossible just means no one brave enough has tried yet. The room fell silent. Marcus found himself looking at this remarkable child who carried the wisdom of her mother's sacrifice and her own 8-year-old optimism. In her young face, he could see an echo of Celia Cron's determination to save lives regardless of the personal cost. "What would we need?" he asked quietly. Ambassador Chen looked shocked. "Captain, you can't be seriously considering this." "I'm seriously considering saving over 2,000 lives," Marcus replied. "Nira, walk me through your mother's design specifications." For the next 30 minutes, the 8-year-old girl guided them through engineering plans that were more sophisticated than anything Marcus had seen in his diplomatic career. Celia Cron had designed the Helios Prime shelters with expandability in mind, creating modular systems that could be rapidly modified to accommodate much larger populations. The critical components are atmospheric processors, power generators, and structural reinforcement materials, Nira explained, manipulating the holographic displays with increasing confidence. "Most of what we need is already available in the colony's industrial fabrication centers, but someone needs to coordinate the modifications while supply ships bring in the specialized equipment." Commander Valex studied the plans with growing amazement. This could actually work, but the coordination would require someone with intimate knowledge of both human and Xerian technologies, and someone would need to maintain surface operations while everyone else moved to the underground. Shelters, Marcus added, that person would be exposed to the full force of the seismic activity. "The genetic memories show something else," Nira said softly. "This kind of operation works best when people trust each other completely. When humans and Xerions work together like family instead of like strangers." Ambassador Chun was running calculations on her personal display. "Even if we could coordinate the logistics, the communication challenges would be insurmountable. Human and Xerian technical teams use completely different protocols." "Not if you have a translator who understands both systems," Nira said with 8-year-old confidence. Birth mother's memories include complete technical vocabularies for both species. "And my genetic connection lets me share thoughts and feelings directly." Marcus felt pieces of an impossible plan clicking into place. "You're proposing to serve as a telepathic bridge between the technical teams." While Captain Reed coordinates surface operations, Commander Valex added, her skin showing patterns of growing excitement and terror in equal measure. "And I provide Xerian military support for the supply runs," she continued. "My interceptors can carry the specialized equipment while your scout ships handle personnel evacuation for anyone who can't be accommodated in the expanded shelters." General Morrison's holographic image shook his head. "The risk assessment on this plan is absolutely catastrophic. If anything goes wrong, we lose not just the colony population, but also 2 of our most experienced officers and a child with irreplaceable genetic knowledge. If we don't try," Marcus said quietly, "we definitely lose over 2,000 innocent people." Nira stepped forward, moving to stand between Marcus and Commander Valex. She took each of their hands in her small ones, and suddenly Marcus felt something extraordinary. Through the child's telepathic abilities, he could sense Commander Valex's thoughts and emotions directly. Her fierce determination to protect every life under her command, her amazement at the courage this human was willing to show for strangers, and her deep growing respect for the man who had saved her daughter's birth mother. Through the same connection, Marcus could feel Nira's absolute confidence in their ability to succeed, her innocent faith that good people working together could accomplish anything. And beneath that, he sensed the echo of Celia Cron's final gift, the unshakable belief that some bonds transcended every boundary the universe could create. Birth Mother's last memory was watching Captain Marcus fly away with me in his arms, Nira said, her young voice carrying the weight of inherited wisdom. She died knowing that courage and compassion could bridge any gap between species. Today we prove she was right. Commander Valex's skin shifted to the deep, steady patterns that Marcus was learning indicated absolute resolve. Captain Reed, if you're willing to risk your life for my people again, then I'm willing to trust you with our most advanced technology and our most precious resource. She squeezed Nira's hand gently. Marcus looked down at the child who had inherited her mother's sacrifice and turned it into hope for the future. Little star, are you ready to help save some people? Nira's skin blazed with excited silver light. Birth Mother's memories say that heroes are strongest when they work together, and I think we're about to prove that heroes come in all sizes. The next 4 hours became a testament to what two species could accomplish when they chose trust over fear. Marcus piloted supply runs through increasingly dangerous atmospheric conditions, his human instincts for rapid tactical decisions complementing the Xerian Interceptor's superior technology. Commander Valex coordinated the military aspects of the operation with precision that impressed even the most experienced human officers. But it was Nira who made the impossible plan actually work. Positioned in the colony's emergency command center, she served as a telepathic bridge between human and Xerian technical teams, translating not just languages, but entire ways of thinking about engineering and problem-solving. When human intuition suggested an innovative shortcut, she helped Xerian precision refine it into practical reality. When Xerian systematic planning identified potential problems, she helped human creativity find unexpected solutions. Shelter Complex 7 is ready for population transfer, reported Dr. Sarah Kim, the human engineering team leader. The Xerian atmospheric processors are integrating perfectly with our life support systems. Population transfer complete for sections 1 through 4, added engineer Zeths Moran from the Xerian team. The human structural reinforcement techniques are exceeding our stress calculations. Through it all, Marcus maintained surface operations while the planet literally shook apart around him. Each supply run became more dangerous as the seismic activity intensified, but each successful trip brought them closer to saving every life on Helios Prime. Final supply run complete, Marcus reported as he guided his battered scout ship into the colony's hangar bay. All critical materials delivered. How's our timeline? 18 minutes until seismic critical mass, Commander Valex replied from her interceptor. All population transfers complete. The expanded shelter system is operating at full capacity, and everyone is safe. Marcus asked. Nira's voice came through the communication system, bright with triumph. All 2,347 people are secure in the underground shelters. Birth Mother's design worked perfectly. As the surface installations were evacuated and sealed, Marcus found himself in the command center with Nira and Commander Valex, watching through reinforced viewports as the planet's surface convulsed with geological fury. The mining facilities that had taken years to build were reduced to rubble in minutes, but beneath the surface, over 2,000 lives were safe and secure. The rescue fleets will arrive in 16 hours, Commander Valex reported. The shelter systems are operating well within safe parameters. Everyone will be evacuated successfully. Marcus looked down at Nira, who was monitoring the shelter status displays with the serious concentration of someone far older than her 8 years. You did it, little star. You saved them all. Nira smiled, her skin showing the warm, happy patterns of a child who had helped make the world a better place. We did it, she corrected. Birth Mother's memories are happy. She says this is what she hoped for when she gave you the crystal pendant. Marcus touched the pendant through his uniform, feeling the weight of promises kept and new ones being made. What do you think she would say about humans and Xerions working together? She would say that love is stronger than fear, and hope is stronger than difference, Nira replied with the certainty of inherited wisdom. And she would say that some families choose each other instead of being born to each other. Commander Valex's skin showed deep, warm patterns that Marcus was learning to recognize as profound affection. Captain Reed, I believe my daughter has just extended a formal invitation for you to become part of our family. And I believe, Marcus said, settling into the chair beside them as they waited for the rescue fleets to arrive, that I would be honored to accept. As the three of them watched the successful evacuation proceed, Marcus realized that Celia Cron's final gift had grown into something even she couldn't have imagined. Not just a bridge between species, but the foundation for a new kind of alliance built on trust, courage, and the simple understanding that courage was always stronger when shared. The little girl, who carried her mother's memories, had proven that some bonds transcended every boundary the universe could create. And in the space between species, between life and death, between formal diplomacy and chosen family, they had written a new chapter in Galactic History .1 that proved the most important connections were always the ones built on love, sacrifice, and the unshakable belief that good people working together could accomplish anything. In the years that followed, the Helios Prime rescue would be remembered as the moment when humans and Zirion stopped being allies of convenience and became family. By choice. But Marcus would always remember it as the day an 8-year-old girl taught him that heroes came in all sizes, and the greatest courage was always the kind that chose hope over fear. The crystal pendant would remain against his heart, but its weight had changed from burden to blessing. Celia Cron's promise had been kept, and her daughter's future was bright with possibilities that neither species could have achieved alone.